This is Blue Left, a podcast dedicated to amplifying the underrepresented Democratic voices in Tennessee, working tirelessly to bring progressive change to the volunteer state. Here's your host, Peggy Kingsbury.
That's right. From grassroots organizers to community leaders, from urban centers to rural towns, we'll highlight the diverse perspectives and powerful voices that often go unheard. Join us as we lift up the blue wave and shine a light on the path toward a more inclusive and equitable Tennessee. Again, I'm your host, Peggy Kingsbury, and this is Blue Lift, where every voice matters. Let's get started. Friends, today I am so excited to have with me my good friend, Damon Rogers. Damon is a sixth-generation Williamson County resident. Can you believe that? 6 generations. We don't come across that much anymore, do we?
I'm supposed to treat you to lunch.
That's right. That's right. Damon has done it all. She's protested in the 60s. She's been a proud Navy wife for 3 decades. That is a career right there. They retired in 2000, and she has been an advocate and activist, having no constraints at this point from her career or military. And she also has a bachelor's degree in humanities and education. Damon loves to say that she has a master's in life and her PhD in speed spending for political candidates. And I'm sure your husband's proud of that one. I have to tell you, my friend Damon has such an interesting background, and I think you all are really going to love hearing about the path that she and her family took from being a military family seeped in Republican ideals and being very supportive of Republicans to today becoming a very active progressive family. So we're going to just dive right in and ask Damon about that past and how that came about. What do you think was the first thing that happened that made you think, wow, we might not be Republicans anymore?
Oh, yes. I can tell you exactly what happened. When George W. Bush put our country into war based on a lie. My husband looked at me and he says, I will never vote Republican again. This is wrong. This is a lie. And we knew, my husband had served in the White House, so we were very familiar with how things work within the White House and the dynamics of a president wanting to get reelected again. And that's what they care about, is getting reelected again.
Right.
But then when this came out that he was putting us into war, that lasted 20 years, that war. True. We just said we will not vote Republican again. And we are people of our word. When we say that we're not going to do something, we haven't since then. So since that time, I have been an independent, mostly voting Republican because of the military. My husband has always been a Republican. Neither one of us were allowed. We couldn't be.
Right.
We serve it at the pleasure of the president, as far as my husband was concerned. I could not be loud because of some of the positions that I held in the nonprofit world or in my career. We didn't have to be loud back then.
That's right.
The country was working.
Well, and we weren't sorted.
No
one was sorting us by which side we were on.
Not at all. However, when we have not voted Republican since George W. put us into that war, and he is still not loud and proud. However, I became very loud and proud because after that, I saw the divisiveness in our country. We had retired back here where I grew up. He grew up in Brentwood. I grew up here. Most of my friends are Republican, and they could not believe that I am this loud, proud Democrat when I retired back here.
And I want to ask you some more about that, but I want to go back to one thing. How, and there might be national secrets you can't tell, but how were you and Mark, and your husband's name is Mark, how were you and Mark so sure that the war was based on a lie?
Well, we weren't at first. First of all, if you're military, the last thing you want is a war.
Right.
I mean, we have our military to protect and keep us safe, but we were in the Vietnam War. We were active duty during the Vietnam. My husband served 3 times overseas in the Vietnam War, then the Gulf War, and then this war. I don't know how we really knew that it was based on a lie, but when he said the words that there are weapons of mass destruction that we need to go and take out, well, because of my husband's background, he knew that that was a lie.
Wow.
That there was not. We had already sent a team over to decide if that was truth.
Right.
And then about just a few months later, the lie was based on that. We are going to take out the weapons of mass destruction, knowing that we'd already had a team that said there's not any weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
Now, most military wouldn't know that. Most people wouldn't know that, but most military did know that.
Wow. Well, that had to have been a very hard time for you all, because I sense that it was almost like a loss, like your ability to support whatever the president was saying and doing vis-a-vis the military had to have been very strong for military family. And then it was like a loss.
Yes.
Is that right?
For Mark and I personally, I don't think it was a loss for a lot of military families. They have not broadened their horizons to think beyond just supporting whoever's in charge, which makes me sad. And I guess, and like I say, Mark's not loud and proud. I am. I felt like I had to take on that role to educate and inform my military friends, not to be ugly about things. But my friends here said, "I can't believe you're a Democrat." I said, "Yes, I'm a Democrat because the war was based on a lie." And they have so much respect for my husband. And they said, "And Mark's a Democrat?" I said, "Yes, he is," for that very reason. So slowly but surely, I'm seeing a little bit of change in some of my military friends. Sadly, not enough. And of course, it broke our hearts. It truly broke our hearts when January 6th happened. And you saw the amount of military that was involved in that insurrection.
That had to be very hard.
That's what hurt our hearts the most.
Yes, yes. Well, so I know that, based on what you've said, there were losses of friendships.
Oh, yes.
And how have you dealt with that? Because I'm assuming you probably had some friends throughout your military career that you had been very, very close to, especially when your spouses were deployed and whatnot. How has that felt to have those lost friendships?
I didn't give up those friendships immediately. I did try to talk reasonably with them and just ask questions. I'm a great question asker. And the sad thing is they want the same things we want, but they just cannot give up that letter R beside their name. That is so ingrained in their psyche. And that's, I find that very sad. But also, and so it has been hard for more so on Mark than it has been on me. I just move on. Mark sort of relishes or stays in the, I need to change their minds.
Oh, so yeah, that's got to be very hard for him.
But that's him.
Because he probably has buddies that he went through a lot with.
But I will tell you, now he's not a poster. He's not loud and proud. I am. And we have heard from so many of our military friends that are now, because of the information and the education, and of course it's put out that war was a lie. It's being put out who is being arrested for the January the 6th. People are slowly coming to me and saying, I hear you. I'm with you. What can I do where I live? And we have friends that live all over the United States.
Oh, sure. Probably
And
all over the world.
We have friends. We have dear friends that live in Belgium, and all they say to me when they write me is, I'm so sorry. That's all they can say.
Yeah.
Is what's happening to the United States.
Well, and it has to be, especially with Mark having worked in the White House. And I think you and I come from a time when the presidency was such an honorable position, and one always approached the Oval Office. The president always wore a suit, and it was just a place of honor. And to see some of the shenanigans that are going on now vis-a-vis the presidency, that has got to also be very hard for Mark to see how things changed in the White House and how things were being done, say, in the first Trump administration, the last Trump administration.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine Mark being there under a man like that, a less than honorable man like that. I'm glad we didn't have to live through that. We didn't have friends that were at the White House at that time. But we had senior naval officers who were still serving. And of course, you serve at the leisure of the president.
Right.
And my heart went out to them. I will say those senior officers that we know are now more liberal than what they were in the past. And so it's been an awakening.
Right.
For many of our military, which that's a good thing. I always go for the good news, and I am seeing people in our military awakening and reaching out, at least to me, if not Mark, and just saying, how can I help? I'm in Virginia. I'm in Hawaii. I'm in wherever they
Oh, wow. That's great.
And that's wonderful. And of course, what I say to them, find your local Democratic Party and join.
And get active.
Because I don't know what else is going on in their area.
Right.
So, but if they will become a member of their local Democratic Party, wherever they live, they will hear. One friend called me and he said, the only news I get is from you.
Well, you are a very reliable source. So I want to ask you, you mentioned January 6th, and the way that you phrased that really hit me because, I'm an ex-police officer, and there were a lot of law enforcement issues around January 6th, and I was hurt from both sides. It broke my heart to see police officers abused. That just floored me. Mm-hmm. And to see people cheering on the physical abuse of our officers, of our police officers, just made me literally cry. Mm-hmm. But then also to know how many of the people were there and were doing that were current or former police officers also broke my heart. And I've read several stories where officers who were working on January 6th were physically harmed by officers who were there on their off day. And that just shocked me.
I can't imagine.
And my friends in the cop world that I still have, they also were very, very struck by that. I want to bring it down a little bit now, Damon, and I want to talk a little bit about good old Franklin and Williamson County. Now, your family has been here. How many generations did you say?
6. I have 6. My children are 7th generation.
That is incredible. And you live in a house this was your grandfather's house, is that right?
No, we lived my daddy farmed when I was a little girl.
Okay.
We lived on a farm called Boxwood Hall in Brentwood, which is the home is still there. The area has been developed. It's now a subdivision. As a farmer, he decided he couldn't raise 3 little children. We were 3 kids in 3 years. And he said, I think I better get out and start, do something different to raise these children. So that's when we moved to town and into the house that I'm in now. But no, it used to be the Church of Christ manse. And
Is that right?
and Daddy got the call. They were building their pastor a different home. And so Daddy got the call and said, well, would you like to buy the manse? That's what they called it back then. I don't know what they called it in today's world. And Daddy said, sure. So that's how we got to town.
Oh, how about that?
We came to town from the farm.
Yeah, and it's just so funny. You came to town from Brentwood. That's hilarious.
Well, there were only 5 farms in Brentwood.
Right.
One of which was my father's.
Yeah. I think Brentwood was the country and Franklin was town.
Well, this was the country too.
Yeah, oh yeah, where we're at right now, Thompson Station, for sure.
And the Aikens all came from Burwood Thompson Station. So I'm back where my family
you're
started.
Sitting here today where you started. So when you all ended your military career, how long had it been since you had lived in Franklin when you moved back?
30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you moved back, what year was that?
1997.
So even between 97 and now, things have changed drastically.
Right.
When you came back in 97, was Franklin / Williamson County purple at the time as far as politics go?
No.
It was already red.
It was already red. When I left Franklin in 71, we were Democrats. The majority of Williamson County voted Democrat.
That's what what I'd heard.
Yeah. So when I came back to live, and I'd always voted here because we had absentee ballots. So I've never missed a vote. And I'm pretty proud of that for 56 years.
Wow, yes.
And I've always voted absentee. But before we retired back here, I remember seeing the ballot, and less Democrats were on the ballot. Now, my family was Republican, but we were civilized, and they knew I voted person over party, especially for president.
Right.
And so I kept asking my daddy, why are there no Democrats? He said, we finally shifted over to the Republicans. Williamson County's Republican. So I knew that was coming.
Now, what do you think made that happen?
That I don't know. I didn't live here at the time. I really don't know.
I've often wondered if it was, I guess, what my generation calls white flight. If it was people leaving the Nashville area. And
it's a great question. That's a great Holly McCall question.
That would be.
Because she lived here. She's never left here. I did. I left for 30 years. However, but anyway, so he answered my question. He said, we're Republicans. So by the time I got back here in 97 and voted in the first election, it was nothing but Republicans on the ballot. And I came home and I said to them, what the heck have y'all done to my county? How did this happen? And they couldn't even really answer. Of course, they were thrilled. They were Republicans.
Well, and when you said that, what happened to my county, I've lived in Williamson County since about 2013, 14. And even the changes since then have been really shocking. I have seen the extremes, and I'm going to say this, and I truly mean this, I've seen the extremes on both sides go further and further. But of course, we not only are governed by a supermajority, you and I live in a supermajority.
Correct.
And this Moms for Liberty thing, what in the world?
I don't know.
I'm baffled. I remember when I first heard about some shenanigans at the Williamson County School Board. And I had friends from other states texting me and messaging me and saying, what in the world? Isn't that where you live? That must have been for someone like yourself who can have very hard discussions in a genteel way. That must have been shocking to see your town disparaged that way on the national news.
Yes. Oh, it was awful. And I did reconnect with a lot of friends all over the world because we made national news.
Right.
And it's embarrassing. That didn't really bother me, but it just, I thought I didn't want to be known as our whole town being like that. And yet these people know me, and they said, Damon, what are you doing about it?
Right. Well, yeah, exactly.
It's like, I'm baffled. I mean, it's the first time that I've seen. Now, I will tell you, the Tea Party, that was a big deal.
That was a big deal here, wasn't it?
That was a big deal. I didn't live here at the time, but I remember my parents talking about the Tea Party.
And some of the listeners won't even know what that is, but it was just
sort of
that's
Marsha Blackburn. Let me just put it that put her on the map. Tea
it was
Party.
a third party that was started, and Ross Perot ran for president, and some people really grabbed hold of that, and it was the very far right side of the Republican Party at the time. Now I guess that's just become the MAGA group.
And and also let's remember that it was all nonpartisan except for governor and president.
Isn't that something?
Everything was nonpartisan.
Isn't that amazing?
Which made everybody get along. We didn't have this division.
Right.
Now with these partisan races, of course there's Republicans versus Democrats.
And a few independents.
And that has not helped.
No, it really has. And it's
especially locally.
It is. Locally, it just seems so unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's a real dividing line for us. That's got to be, for someone who has such deep roots here, that's got to be hard. And I know your daughter, Courtney, ran for office.
Correct.
How did that feel as her mom, hearing some of the things that were said about her candidacy?
I don't know. I'm just a tough old broad. She's a tough. We knew it was coming. We, as a family, when she decided, because it was a state house job.
Right. It was a big job.
Local job. It was a state house job. We had, as a family, she had a wonderful campaign manager who had worked on big elections. And the campaign manager came to us as a family, told us what to do, what not to do, cleaned up all of our socials. Of course, they do background checks on our whole family. I'm the only one that didn't pass that background check.
And why is that?
And let me tell you why. We have a speeding problem on Boyd Mill. And I used to take my hairdryer out and hold it up to the road and yell at people and say, slow down, slow down.
So you were using your hairdryer as a speed detection device.
I made the news. Channel 2, Channel 4, and Channel 5 came out and did an interview on Grandma.
Grandma with her hairdryer.
So, of course, that popped up in the background checks. And so her campaign manager said, it's not a big deal, but just so you know, it's your mother who had the check mark against her as maybe not being all that kosher.
Now, let me ask you this. You did that with your hairdryer, and you made the local news. I know the answer to this. I want you to tell our listeners what happened to that speeding problem on Boyd Mill Road.
We now have speed bumps.
Yes, you do.
Or speed humps, I guess we should say.
Yes,
but that was 7 years in the making.
You went through a lot of hair dryers, didn't you, Damon?
I know. It was so
That's
fun.
one of my favorite stories about you. But you got it done. You persevered.
Slowly, but nevertheless, she persists.
That's exactly right.
I do.
Well, let's bring it almost home. Let's talk just a little bit about current things that are going on. I know you're very involved in the Williamson County Democratic Party. And just for our listeners to describe what you do, you are the captain of the district captains. And in the party, the district captains are really the drivers of everything. Williamson County has 12 districts, and each district has 2 captains. And Damon is sort of the boss of those. How are you feeling about things now?
I'm feeling optimistic. I really am. We have education and information. Knowledge is power.
That's right.
And we are getting the word out to people. My number one goal is to grow our Williamson County Democratic Party with memberships. There are a lot of people that call themselves Democrats and asking questions, whether it's in a private Facebook post or out and about. I'll say, are you a member of our Democratic Party? And they go, I don't know. So I say, well, let's just take time and join. And I just try to do it right then and there, one-on-one. And that base, in my little world, it has grown. I now have, I do a personal email. You probably don't even, I think you're on it, of where I've asked people that are true Democrats if they would like to be on my private email. I blind copy so nobody knows who's on it. That has grown since 2016. I had 88. I now have 214 women, men and women, that have said, we want on your
That's fantastic.
private. And all that email does is educate and inform.
Right.
Because it is so hard to vote in the state of Tennessee. People don't understand why they have to pull a Democrat ballot, because they really would like to vote for that one person on the Republican. And of course, all this comes through what the Democrats did well before I even got here. They've explained it all. I just go and capture the information and put it in my little newsletter.
Right.
And I've had men and women say to me, we've never been told that. It really is knowledge is power. So anytime there's something on campaign signs that I'm going to be putting out before this next November 5th election, people in Williamson County can get in trouble with campaign signs. Now, I'm talking Franklin.
Right. There are lots and lots of
Thompson Station has their
subdivisions
own
who have their
ordinance.
own rules
Yeah,
too.
Fairview has their ordinance.
Right.
I'm talking Franklin, and that's where I'm coming from. And people have gotten in trouble putting out signs too soon.
They have.
And then the street department comes along and takes them. And then they get all upset.
Somebody's stealing my signs.
Somebody's stealing my... No, you put it out too soon.
Right.
So I'll be putting out information for Franklin residents. I don't know all the codes for every little municipality, but for Franklin, I'll be putting out that. But I'll give them who they can call if they live in Fairview, if they live in Thompson Station, if they live in Nolensville, who to call about their signs.
Well, and you're right. Knowledge is power.
Oh, it is.
And it's great that you do that. Kind of to wrap things up, probably not on a high note, but let's talk a minute about the most recent election and the turnout, which you and I both know was 18% of registered voters. So in a room of 10, two people basically are deciding how our schools are going to be run, how our state's going to be run. What do you think is the reason for that low turnout? I mean, in Tennessee, it's 50th in the nation for voter turnout, and I just don't really know why.
What I'm hearing in some of my private groups that I'm a member of are just a bunch of excuses. And that sounds very harsh. But I'm disabled. I have 3 or 4 young children at home, and it just takes everything for me to take a deep breath, pause before I get on there. Because what I'd like to do is blast them and say that's just an excuse.
Well, because we have early voting, and for those listeners who don't know, Williamson County is one of 2 counties in the state that has voting centers, and what that means is you do not have to vote in your precinct. You can vote anywhere, and we did that because Williamson County is a county where a lot of people commute to Nashville to work, or they commute from one end of the county to the other to work, and that, with traffic, that can be an hour commute, even though you're staying within your own county. And so we let people vote at the closest voting center they're near when it's time for them to vote. But we also have early voting, which is, through the week, on Saturdays. I mean, you're right.
I will put it this way. There is no excuse not to vote.
There really isn't, and yet still we just, golly, I think this last election, the numbers not only were horrible, but I think they went even down a little bit.
I know.
And we had a very contested race locally that you would have thought would have brought out more people. It's just, I don't know that there's a pride in voting anymore.
I think there's several reasons, and I just wish I could put my finger on one. I think there's a lot of privilege in our county. They like it the way it is.
And you and I have talked, and you know exactly that's what I think the issue is. I think that there's not a pain point.
No.
And when one feels no pain point in their life, they feel no desire to get out and do something about it.
And so right now they have voter apathy.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a big house and a nice car, and the kids go to great public schools they don't have to pay for. And Publix is full of groceries, and there's all kinds of ball fields and parks. And it's just a wonderful place. And downtown is lovely, and you can see celebrities.
And all of that is true. But it will not stay true.
And there's no
without
pain point.
Voting.
That's right. I'm afraid that there will be some pain points coming up.
Well, I think there's definitely going to be pain points with the new school boards that just got elected.
I think
very
so
much,
too.
And which is sad. So we're going to have to live through that until the next election to wake people up.
2026, we'll have an opportunity to save the school board. Yeah, and I wouldn't mind if it was. I wouldn't mind if it had all independents on it. I just don't like it being so partisan, and
but it is.
It is.
Yes, I mean, so I live by acceptance. It is what it is. That the Republicans wanted it to be partisan. The Democrats had to come on board and go, okay, it's now partisan. We had no choice.
We have no choice.
No.
Well, I tell you what, Damon, this has been a lot of fun. So I want to ask you this, because I think when people hear you, they're going to say, I really like her, and I want to get my hands on that doggone email that she sends out. Tell me how somebody can do that.
Gladly. I love it. Email me at Damon, Damon, A, Rogers, Rogers, at gmail.com. And just when you email me, let me know how you heard about me. I don't, I really want to know where you're coming from.
Yeah, say, hey, I heard you on Blue Lift, and I just got to get my hands on that email.
Yeah, I welcome you. And I put that on some of the private Facebook groups that I'm on. If you would like to, because I can't post everywhere.
Right.
I know you think I do. Because I'm pretty much out there. As I say, I'm rogue on Facebook.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. But
that's a great, that email is fantastic.
Yeah.
But
that's just putting out truth. And also every email says join if you're a Democrat, join your Williamson County Democratic Party, tn.org.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Damon, for taking time to be with us today.
This was fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hey, listeners, if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And you can also do that on blueliftpodcast.com. And I would love to have you as a regular subscriber. Everybody have a great day, and let's remember, every voice matters.